Good morning. I'm Reverend Sherry Tucker, and I welcome you to our online worship service today. Now, before the sermon starts, I want to make a very important announcement to you today. We have very good news for you today for our entire congregation, because this is the Sunday that we hand out our Burt Scholarships. So on behalf of the Burt Scholarship Committee and the congregation, we have 7 scholars who are going to be awarded scholarships today. And this also is the 7th year that our Burt Scholarship has been going. So we have 7 very deserving young people who have been very active in our church, and you've seen them up there doing lay reading, and they're just great kids, and we're just thrilled to be able to hand this out to them. These scholarships are made possible by a most generous gift from the trust of Clinton H. Burt, who was a longtime supporter of our church. And Jeff has mailed them their checks and certificates, and we'll be congratulating them at our Zoom coffee hour at 11 a.m. They'll be there for you to congratulate. So first we have Jacob Broadhurst. He's a first-year student at Holyoke Community College, pursuing a degree in culinary arts, and his ultimate goal is to open a restaurant someday to follow his love of cooking. Next we have Jordan Burt, who's attending Clark University, pursuing her doctoral program in economics. She wants to pursue a career in international trade policy. Next we have Carly Detmer, who's going to be attending University of Vermont, planning to study English with a math minor, and she's considering education as her career path. Then we have Jessica LaValle, who's a second-year student at AIC, and she's undecided on her major at this time, but she's very excited for the opportunity to continue to learn and grow independently with a determination to succeed. Then we have Jenna Malawan, who is a first-year student at Holyoke Community College, pursuing a degree as a nurse assistant, a CNA. Then she plans to go into a 4-year nursing program to give her the ability to start a career in public health. And we have Kyle Malawan, who's a 3rd-year student at Westfield State University, pursuing studies in criminal justice with the goal of becoming a police officer. And then we have Rachel Swan, who's starting at UMass after she's just completed her first 2 years at Holyoke Community College, and she is studying natural resource conservation, and her plan is to study animal science and then declare pre-vet, ultimately to become a veterinarian. Clinton H. Burt was a 6th-generation dairy farmer in East Hampton and a supporter of our church. He was noted for his hard work and honesty, and was proud of being able to help many members of his extended family attend college, and believed in the power of education to transform people, transform lives and communities. And he lived his belief, pay it forward. And then we just also want to make sure that we mention a special thank you to Adam and Florence Burt, Mr. Burt's children, for their help in making this scholarship program possible, and the members of the Burt Scholarship Committee, who are Linda Broadhurst, Greg Rowland, Sharon Malawan, myself, and Jeff Swanson. Students, we wish each of you just the best of success in your future goal, and Godspeed with your college and university studies through your academic career and beyond. Yay! So please come back for our Zoom coffee hour, where we'll be able to see our recipients and get a group photo, which in this case will be a screenshot, most likely, but there you are. Now, it just so happens that my sermon today is for all of our congregation, of course, but may be especially meaningful to our college students, and I hope that you will find it so, students. So today, Jesus is moving among a crowd of people who come to him for help. He's teaching, he's being kind, he's healing, He's listening. He's doing the work of what we call the gospel. He stops and looks at the group, and he has compassion on them because they seem like sheep without a shepherd. And he says, these people need help. So he wants to send his disciples out from their inner group, let them try their wings to go out into the world to help them. So Jesus gives them instructions as they leave. And I think that we can learn from these instructions because we too are Jesus's disciples who are sent out into the whole world. Jesus sends them to a number of different villages all throughout the area. Here they don't go to the Gentiles, but we know that they do later. But as they go out, they're not to take things with them, not to take a lot of stuff. They're to rely on God and the goodness of other people that they encounter for their meals and lodgings. Now, that's not really literally possible for us nowadays, but what can we take from this? Can we load ourselves down with too much stuff? What do we carry that we don't need? Reminds me of a story. Now, this isn't a joke, but as two monks were traveling together. One was a senior monk, one was a junior monk. They came to a river that had a very strong current. And as they're preparing to cross, they saw a young woman who wanted to get across, but she was very light and would be swept away by the current, and she asked for their help. Now, being monks, they had orders that they weren't supposed to touch women. But then, without a word, the older monk just hoisted her up, carried her across the river, placed her gently on the other side, said goodbye, and the two monks kept walking. Finally, after about 2 hours, the younger monk just exploded. He just had to know what happened. He said, what's wrong with you? As monks, we're not permitted to touch a woman. How could you carry that woman across the river? The older monk looked at him and replied, "Brother, I set her down on the other side, but you've been carrying her for the past 2 hours." Point being, how often do we carry around past hurts, holding on to resentments, when the only person we're really hurting is ourselves? We all go through times when other people say things or behave in a hurtful manner towards us. We all do. And we can choose to ruminate over the past actions or events, but ultimately it will weigh us down, sap our energy and joy for life. So we could carry worry, judgment, grudges, old ways of thinking that don't serve us anymore. If we ruminate over past actions, ours or others, it will weigh us down, and it's not easy to let go. I'm not saying it's easy, it's not, and it's not even a one-time thing. It's a process, and sometimes it's a lifelong project, but it's worth striving for. Because we sometimes mistakenly think that we need to keep grudges and anger because to let them go is to, say that was somehow okay, but that's wrong thinking. Because holding on to anger and blaming hurts us. So we need to travel light, like Jesus said. Don't take what you don't need. Be flexible. Be able to change course, not be weighed down, and trust God. Live in the now, not in the past. Now, as we go out, what is it that we're supposed to do or say when we're sent out to help others? Jesus's disciples back then healed the sick, but we don't really do that today. Now, many of you students out there, you've already kind of chosen your career paths. Educators, policymakers, cooks, nursing, law enforcement, veterinary, and some still deciding. But maybe you feel a calling in some direction. And some of us are older. We have established careers. There's many different careers within our congregation. Some are raising children, some are volunteering, or retired. And it's wonderful that we have diverse interests in many different paths. But no matter what it is we do for work or as a vocation, as disciples of Jesus, we all share the same instructions. Go and proclaim that the kingdom of God is near in whatever job that you have. Now, what does that mean? Well, if we read all through the scriptures, Old Testament, New Testament, teachings of Jesus, I think we can boil it down to three things: to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with God. That's from Micah 6:8. The first is justice, which is very important to God, who all through the Old Testament and is seen through Jesus in the New Testament, it meant to lift up those who are in need, the widow, the poor, the alien. It meant to feed the hungry and bring equal opportunity to those who have not received it. So no matter what profession or walk of life we're in, we too need to remember that in whatever way we can, we're called to do justly. And then to love mercy. Mercy is another word for kindness. It means being kind, even if the person that you're with may not be too kind. But still, when we act with kindness, it makes us better people. We overcome the bent that we all have towards selfishness. We remember on a deep level how connected we are to all people, how good it feels to give mercy. Can I have that sheet there, Kim? Writer George Saunders says, "So here's something I know to be true, although it's a little corny and I don't know quite what to do with it. What I regret most in my life are my failures of kindness. Those moments when another human being was in front of me, suffering, and I responded sensibly, reservedly, mildly. Or to look at it from the other end of the telescope, who in your life do you remember most fondly, with the most undeniable feelings of warmth? Those who were kindest to you, I bet. It's a little oversimple," he writes, maybe, and certainly hard to implement, but I'd say as a goal in life, you could do worse than this. Try to be kinder." End of quote. And then finally, walk humbly with God. We don't do humble real well in our culture in this age of selfies, but humility can be misunderstood. Humility is not false criticism or saying, "Oh, I'm a loser," or something like that. No, humility is recognizing that we have value, but so does everybody else. We're important to God, but so are our brothers and sisters all across the world. Now, Jesus knew that not everybody would accept this gospel message. Not everybody wants justice, kindness, and humility. So what did Jesus say to do? To argue and, get your point across? Jesus said to try kindness, but people may not want to hear it. And if they don't, if they're going to argue, badger you, call you goody two-shoes, say you're out of touch because you're a messenger of peace, then you simply walk away, shake the dust from your feet as you do so. We're to do what we know to be right: justice, kindness, and humility. No matter what line of work we're in, what your calling is as a vocation, we can bring these traits with us. We can be kind, look for opportunities to help out the less fortunate, not think we're better than others, no matter what we do as a living or in retirement. And if people don't agree with that gospel message, hey, you don't have to change everyone's mind to your way of thinking. Leave it to God and do what you know to be right. We live in a contentious world, as did Jesus and the disciples. There are those who don't agree with the gospel message, but don't worry about them. And I'll say to the graduates, live the way you know to be right, like a disciple, and leave behind those things you don't need. Let all of us seek ways that we can also bring the good news of the gospel wherever we walk, because we are disciples. We have that same work to do. We have that same assignment, that same gospel to bring kindness and mercy. And what a privilege it is to be a disciple of Jesus. And for this, we say thanks be to God. Amen.
Amen.
Well, I hope to see you at the Zoom at 11 o'clock. And until then, please remember to send your gifts and offerings into the church. We so much appreciate that, and our church needs it. Or go online for our push pay. May God bless you and keep you. May God's face shine upon you and be gracious to you. And may God give you peace. Miss you. Love you.